update in the case of 4 murdered University of Idaho students, an arrest and new details in the killing of a Deer Park man, plus Spokane drivers frustrated after filling up, only to find their gas tanks filled with water. Thanks for joining us on KREM 2 Plus. I'm Channing Curtis.
And I'm Tim Pham. This is your KREM 2 News Week in Review, where we take a closer look at some of the biggest stories in the inland Northwest this past week. We start with the latest developments out of Moscow.
So we will not be seeing the suspect in court again for more than 5 months now. This after a very short status hearing earlier this morning. We were in the courtroom today. The judge set Brian Kohberger's preliminary hearing for Monday, June 26th. Typically in Idaho, the preliminary hearing has to happen within 2 weeks of the first appearance. The suspect, though, waived his right to a speedy preliminary hearing to give his attorneys time to review the information in the case. The judge reserved the entire week of the 26th for the presentation of evidence, which is what a preliminary hearing is. That evidence is what Moscow PD outlined in the arrest affidavit the courts released last week. After the preliminary hearing will be the arraignment. That's where the suspect will either plead guilty or not guilty. This was the second time we've seen Kohberger in court here in Idaho. He again had a very calm demeanor and again did not address the people in the back of the courtroom, only addressing his attorneys as well as the judge. And the judge did say he will be in custody with no bail until that preliminary hearing. In Moscow, Nicole Hernandez, KREM 2 News.
Because the suspect waived his right to a speedy preliminary hearing, we now know he won't be back in court for 5 months. So what now? I spoke with a trial lawyer this afternoon who says anything is possible between now and June, including the defense and prosecution coming to a resolution. For the public, updates from the Latah County Court over the next 5 months may be scarce. Mo Hammoudi says a lot of the action will be going on behind closed doors.
The prosecutor is likely having investigators investigate in greater detail what occurred in this case, the facts that led up to it. Equally true is that the defense team is doing the same thing.
Hammoudi worked as a criminal defense lawyer for over a decade and is currently a trial lawyer out of Seattle. He says it's unusual to see a preliminary hearing scheduled so far out.
It does jump out at me. It indicates to me that they're negotiating, and it indicates to me that this is a very serious case. Generally, preliminary hearings are not set out that far, but when they are, it's because there are things that is happening in both camps that the public is not privy to.
But in the time between now and June 26th, he says a variety of different things can occur.
Between now and then, one of two things may happen. The case may come to a close. There may be a resolution, or the case may not come to a close. There won't be a resolution, at which point the prosecutor's office will formally charge him.
By coming to a resolution or close, Hammoudi means it could be in the form of a plea deal. An example could be a lesser sentence or dismissal of some charges if he pleads guilty. Hammoudi says typically the prosecutor would make this formal offer, but the defense could approach with an offer of their own. He says the next 5 months will give both the defense and prosecution ample time to understand the facts of the case and make informed next steps. At this time, the suspect is in custody with no set bail. Hammoudi says in homicide cases, it's rare for a judge to grant bail. If they did, it could be in the millions of dollars. Based on this case so far, Hammoudi does not believe a bail will be set or granted. In the studio, Janelle Finch, KREM 2 News. Jason Labar says he first met his client at the Monroe County Correctional Facility.
Ordinary, average type guy.
He says the first thing he said to the suspect was, "Don't tell me anything about the case. Don't tell me any facts. That's information for your Idaho attorney."
And then I explained to him, essentially the extradition proceedings. And he was very calm. He was aware of what was going on. He was aware of the murders.
He says his client was intentional about what was said on his behalf in the statement to the public.
The statement that was written by myself in my office, but the exonerated, the eager to be exonerated was his. He specifically said eager to be exonerated rather than he was innocent or something like that.
Now, proving his innocence is in someone else's hands. Kootenai County Public Defender Ann Taylor.
When I spoke to Attorney Taylor, I essentially said, tag, you're it.
Labar says after reading the affidavit, he says his client's defense team may be able to poke holes in an upcoming trial.
So you have transfer DNA on the teeth. Transfer DNA can stay on an item for up to at least a year if no one else touches it or it's unblemished or something like that. So, I mean, that doesn't place him at the scene on the day of the crime. Certainly it's suspicious that he turns his cell phone off, but cell phone tower pings are unreliable at best. If it pings off a tower, you're talking that the individual's within 20-mile radius of that tower.
Labar says for those invested in this case, this is just the beginning of a long process ahead. As things continue to develop, he says the public should view this case with an open and objective mind. Labar says he's continuing to work with the suspect's family in Pennsylvania, but will no longer be working directly with his former client now that he's in Idaho.
Well, Ethan's mom, Stacy, put out a long post on Facebook updating everyone on how the family is doing nearly 2 months after the murders. A scholarship in Ethan's name has already raised more than $100,000.
Ethan Chapins' mom says the family is still trying to process their new normal. However, she says nothing has changed. In a Facebook post, Stacy Chapins says they spend no time being angry, adding it's energy not well spent and it wouldn't change the outcome. During the vigil on campus, Ethan's mom told everyone they were eternally grateful for the time they spent with him.
That's the most important message that we have for you and your families, is to make sure that you spend as much time as possible with those people, because time is precious and it's something you can't get back.
Chapin and his twin brother and sister were inseparable, and this week they returned to campus without him. Chapin's mom says anything he had is now frozen with the defense. For them, that includes 2 cars, his personal belongings, and a nice set of golf clubs. Chapin's mom went on to say the support from the university, Moscow PD, and Idaho State Police has been profound, and they are eternally grateful for all the cards and messages they've received from around the country, too many to reply to. The tulip farm Chapin worked at growing up is working on a way to honor him, selling a tulip bulb mix called Ethan's Smile. Proceeds will support a memorial garden and a scholarship. The Sigma Chi Foundation created a scholarship in Ethan's name to honor his memory. So far, nearly $114,000 have been raised. The scholarship will be presented each year to an undergraduate member of the Gamma Eta chapter.
I'm outside the Student Union building at the University of Idaho, and right now there is actually a campus security parked outside the building. They've been there for a while, but today we've learned that some of the police presence that's been on campus is going to be less heightened than it has been over the last couple months, though the university is going to offer more resources for those students returning and adjusting to a new semester after tragedy. Rain and students are trickling in at the University of Idaho ahead of the start of the spring semester. A new beginning, less than 2 months after 4 students were murdered in an off-campus home November 13th. For many, it's the first time they'll be back on campus since then.
We are seeing most of our students return. Our enrollment actually looks to be higher than it was last spring.
Provost Tori Lawrence says some students took up the option to stick with remote classes, but for those on campus, there will be some changes.
We have a lot of different programming that's being developed right now around safety and security, everything from self-defense. There's been an interest in that.
One noticeable change, a slight decline in police patrols, while Moscow PD, Latah County Sheriff's deputies, and private security will all remain.
With the arrest happening very recently, we felt like we needed to keep that. It won't be quite the same as what it was in November and December.
Lawrence says there will be fewer Idaho State troopers on campus. Students can also expect counseling services to continue as they return to a campus forever changed.
This has shown that Moscow is not immune to violence like this, but it's still a very safe community.
Provost Lawrence says that the university is going to continue revisiting the need for security and police presence. They're also going to continue communicating with students throughout the semester about what's going on. Live in Moscow, Shannon Mowdy, KREM 2 News.
Well, you could say the new year started with some sense of relief after investigators arrested the man who they believe murdered 4 University of Idaho students. But news that the suspect lived right here in Pullman and was studying at this very university had many students here at WSU worried. Before Brian Kohberger's arrest, law enforcement released no information about a potential suspect, which meant over the course of 6 weeks, WSU students had no idea the suspect walked among them.
It's been extremely hectic and kind of scary, especially with the fact that he actually lived next door to me on the neighboring property.
WSU senior Megan House felt uneasy after learning the news about the suspect, but she is reassured knowing he is now in custody and that fellow students seem to be looking out for one another.
I mean, I do have pepper spray on me at all times just for that extra bit of protection, but it's definitely a lot better coming back knowing that he's caught and people are looking out for you all the time.
I asked Pullman and WSU PD to comment on their knowledge of the suspect prior to his arrest, but because the agencies fall under the Idaho judge's non-dissemination order, they cannot discuss this. But WSU Police Chief Gary Jenkins told me student safety was always made a top priority.
Whenever there's a situation like that, there's an unknown suspect, there's really any possibility. And so we always plan and take that into account and make sure that we do provide enough, as much resources and safety as we can.
Some of those resources include a free walking service with WSU cadets in the evening hours on campus. The service wasn't heavily used early last semester, but Chief Jenkins says he did see an uptick in the months following the murders in Moscow. WSU Cadet Captain Michael Maddox, a student at WSU, is glad that he can help fellow students feel safe on campus.
Being able to help my peers, help the people on campus just feel safe, especially because so many don't feel safe right now, is just amazing. It's an amazing feeling, and I really appreciate that I get to use my training experience I've developed in this program.
Now, I've been on the WSU Pullman campus all day today, and I'm standing right here on the Terrell Mall. It's a big intersection for students heading to class, and I did notice that while some students are feeling a bit uneasy about their return to Pullman after the suspect's arrest, it did seem like business as usual here. A lot of students I heard laughing, excited to reunite and see friends, and also ready to take on another semester of classes. Reporting from WSU, Amanda Reilly, KREM 2 News.
Brian Kohberger made his first court appearance in an Idaho courtroom last week on accusations he killed 4 college students 2 months earlier. Leading up to his first court hearing, social media users began sharing Reddit posts they claim were written by the suspect. The post says, quote, "I'm inviting you to participate in a research project that seeks to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime." The poster identified himself as Brian Kohberger, and the posts were shared in subreddits like ex-cons and prisons. So let's verify, did Brian Kohberger write the post on Reddit asking for help researching why people commit crimes? Our sources are court documents filed in Latah County Court, DeSales University, and a review of Internet archives of Reddit using the Wayback Machine. The posts on Reddit appeared in June and have since been removed from the platform. During Kohberger's arraignment, prosecutors introduced an affidavit written by Moscow police which confirmed the Reddit posts were made by Kohberger. Using the Wayback Machine, we were able to look at the original posts, and they included a DeSales University email address for Brian Kohberger. DeSales confirms that Kohberger was a student there until 2022, where he earned his bachelor's in psychology and a master's in criminal justice. So yes, Brian Kohberger did post on Reddit asking for help researching why people commit crimes. With your Verify, I'm Mark Hanrahan.
Corinne Fletcher says she stopped off at the 76 at Wandemere 2 days after Christmas and left with an $800 repair bill. Now she wants the station to pay up.
Just a typical day. I filled up with about 11 gallons of gas, and within the first 5 minutes after filling up, my car went crazy.
That was December 27th, after Karina Fletcher says she stopped at this 76 gas station. Almost immediately, she says her car's alerts and codes started going off. She took it to the shop with no idea what was wrong.
They plugged it in for me and told me that there were 18 different misfirings, 18 different codes.
She later learned she wasn't alone in her car troubles.
A post that someone had posted about the 76 at Windermere having water in their gas tank. So I immediately did some research of what that does to your car and figured out that's exactly what happened.
This was just a lot of water. After, hours and hours of diagnosis, just basically taking a fuel sample and finding contaminated fuel was the culprit.
This is what they found in her tank.
This line is separating the fuel from the water that was in her gas tank.
The tank had to be drained.
I pulled 18.6 gallons out of the fuel tank. So I would say she was close to probably 45% of water to gas ratio in that tank.
The whole ordeal, which left her without the van for 8 days, ended with an $800 bill.
It can get expensive, depending on how long the water's in there. That can ruin fuel injectors, that can ruin electric fuel pumps in the tank. It can, water corrodes.
And with chatter on social media, it appears Karina isn't the only one dealing with this issue. Other people at other gas stations across Spokane say they also had costly repairs from pumping water with their gas. We called the 76 main office. They confirmed water was in the premium tank and they're paying for the tows and repairs for customers. But Karina says that didn't include her bill.
She goes, "Ooh, yeah, it's only our premium that had water in the gas tank." And I said, "Well, it wasn't though, because 5 minutes after I filled up with your fuel, I had water in the gas tank." And so I asked her, I go, "Do you expect me to think that that's somehow a coincidence that there's water in my gas tank and there were water in your gas tanks and it somehow didn't get there because of your gas?" And she goes, "Yep, sorry, not my problem."
When we asked 76 for an interview to get answers, they said they'd call us back. So far, that call hasn't come.
I'm just hoping that there can be something that's done.
We're still working to get more answers, including how widespread this issue might be and what drivers can do to protect themselves. I reached out to the state agency that regulates fuel and inspects gas pumps. So far, I haven't heard back. In Spokane, Shannon Mowdy, KREM 2 News.
This was just a lot of water.
This is just a sample of what mechanics found in Karina Fletcher's gas tank after she says she pumped fuel contaminated with water at the 76 at Windermere last month.
Within the first 5 minutes after filling up, my car went crazy.
Since our first report Wednesday, even more of you have contacted KREM 2 with the same issue and the hundreds, even thousands of dollars it's costing you. Now, we have more answers. Fletcher says she was told the 76 station wouldn't pay for her $800 repair because she used unleaded gas. While a representative from the station's main office couldn't talk to me on camera, she did say they're now paying for all customers who had contaminated gas. You'll have to contact the station to start that process. The office says a part in their premium tank went bad during the extreme freeze, allowing water inside. They believe after premium customers pumped gas, some residual contaminated fuel was in the hose that made its way into tanks when other customers pumped regular fuel. But from reports on social media, this wasn't the only station with the same issue. So I've called the state agency.
Hello, this is Tigis McQueen with the Washington State Weights and Measures Program,
responsible for inspecting and regulating gas stations. Hi, Tigis. This is Shannon Mowdy with KREM 2 News. Just following up on the voicemail that you left yesterday confirming that you got my messages. They also weren't able to talk on camera, but did say they're interested in investigating the issue. You can file a complaint with the Weights and Measures Program by phone or email.
Gary Alt is a 14-time convicted felon. Just days before this murder, police say Alt attacked several people at random, and at least one of those assaults was caught on camera.
It was the day after Christmas when 83-year-old Richard Purdy was found murdered in his Deer Park home. His girlfriend stopped by to check on him when he didn't show up for dinner.
He was a nice guy. I mean, he helped me a couple times on a couple different things, projects that I had done. To think that he's gone now, unbelievable.
The Spokane County medical examiner says Purdy died from sharp and blunt force injuries. Witnesses reported seeing a man in the area carrying a bag, possibly walking a dog. But the big break in the case happened this week when detectives linked a DNA profile to a suspect, 37-year-old Gary Alt. They didn't have to look far to find him. Alt was already in the Spokane County Jail, arrested a day after the murder by Spokane police on unrelated charges. The sheriff's office says those charges stem from unrelated, unprovoked assaults on several victims days before the murder. Police say this video shows Alt bear spraying two women sitting on the ground, then kicking them in the head near Wall and Spokane Falls Boulevard on December 17th. Police say not long after, two other people sitting outside a business on Main Street were randomly punched. Later that day, another woman was also bear sprayed and kicked. Then on December 20th, 6 days before the murder, a man inside a bathroom at the North Spokane Target was attacked with a hammer. Alt was booked into jail December 27th for assault and unlawful possession of a firearm. Today, he was also charged with first-degree murder and burglary.
And Alt's bond has been raised to more than $1.6 million. Right now, there's no indication he knew any of the victims, including this 83-year-old man he's accused of murdering. Investigators believe Alt entered the victim's home by removing a screen door and then breaking a window near the front door. That 83-year-old victim was stabbed 28 times. Gary Alt is now charged with first-degree murder and burglary. The victim, 83-year-old Richard Purdy, was found dead in his office where he stored his guns by his girlfriend of 12 years who went to check on him when he didn't show up for dinner the day after Christmas. Purdy's family told deputies he didn't have any enemies and wouldn't just let a stranger into his home. Investigators found several of his guns on a hallway floor and some in the back of his truck with bloodstains. They also found an 8 to 10-inch bloodstained survival knife in the snow outside Purdy's home, which had Alt's DNA on it, according to court documents. And when investigators matched it, they learned that Alt was already in jail. Police believe he's behind several unprovoked violent attacks across Spokane, but today he was in court answering for those murder and burglary charges. Today a judge set his bond at $1.5 million. From the Spokane County Courthouse, Kyle Simchuk, KREM 2 News.
Because of the work of millions of Washingtonians, I can proudly report to you this: the state of our state is strong.
In his first in-person State of the State address since 2020, Governor Jay Inslee spent the most time trying to convince legislators to back his housing proposal. He says the millions the state has spent on those experiencing homelessness recently is not doing enough.
This is why I'm proposing a $4 billion referendum that will significantly speed up the construction of thousands of new units that will include shelters, supportive housing, and affordable housing. This will be combined with additional behavioral health support and substance use treatment and employment services and more.
It's not the worst suggestion that's come. Will we support it? I want to listen to testimony and go through the process on this.
Republicans say they're willing to listen, but they're also skeptical, saying the state needs to make it easier and cheaper for the private sector to build homes rather than just the state borrowing billions.
Just based on the math, his proposal doesn't work. It just doesn't. We have a shortage of somewhere between 250 and 300,000 homes in our state. He claims that with $4 billion over 6 years, he can build 20,000 homes. There's no evidence to say he can do it.
Towards the end of his address, the governor brought up two more controversial topics: banning the sale of so-called assault weapons and guaranteeing a woman's right to an abortion through a constitutional amendment. Those ideas got standing ovations from Democrats here in the House, but no Republicans applauded them. In Olympia, Drew Mickelson, KREM 2 News.
David Matheson was 71 years old and an icon in the Coeur d'Alene Native community. According to the Coeur d'Alene tribe, Matheson was a, quote, mover and shaker of incalculable proportions.
He always told great stories, and he was so articulate in that I know, he always presented this vision of our ancestors and that we're here for a purpose. And I truly believe that he did serve his purpose.
Laura Penny has served as the CEO of Coeur d'Alene Resort and Casino for the past 3 years. She says she wouldn't be where she is today without Matheson.
He's been a longtime mentor of mine, always encouraged me to do well and have a dream and to follow that dream.
Penny says as the casino's first CEO, Matheson hired over 90 new workers even when the reservation was seeing high unemployment rates. Over his career, Matheson also served as a special assistant in the U.S. Department of Interior and a head of the Bureau of Indian Affairs. But his friends most remember him as a passionate soul with a kind and warm heart.
Dave Matheson is actually the reason that I even came to work here. I went to school down at U of I, and Dave came to speak in one of my business classes. And he spoke so eloquently and so passionate about working at the casino.
Matheson returned on the tribal council in 2018, where he continued to serve his community through various charity events.
Not only is it, in my opinion, a huge loss to myself, to my family, to Dave's family, I also think that the tribe and the community will never be the same without Dave.
15-year-olds are supposed to be chasing big dreams, looking forward to getting their driver's license or working their first job. Michael Stabille's family says he had a lot to look forward to before dying from accidental fentanyl poisoning. It's been nearly 2 years since Jennifer and Frank Stabille's son Michael died. They say no amount of time is enough to fully heal from the loss of a child.
It's my worst nightmare to lose a child. It's hard to get up every day without him. And my grandkids keep me going. Yeah. That's God. Yeah. God keeps me going. That's why I'm still here. I'm still standing. We're still standing by the grace of God.
The Stabilles say they'll never forget that dark day in May.
And I went to the door, the music had stopped, and I just had a gut feeling. So I went through the door and I saw him laying there, and he was in peace, his eyes closed. And I called for Jennifer to call 911. We went in there. Jennifer started CPR. Then the ambulance and everyone showed up.
Despite their efforts, Mikey was gone. His parents found him lying on the floor after experimenting with what he thought was Percocet.
My child's not here anymore. And I don't know why, why they wanted to experiment, but kids shouldn't die from their mistakes. That's not fair. And he should learn from it, not die from it.
State leaders are using Mikey's story to raise awareness around the dangers of fentanyl, because the reality is there's more stories just like his.
Michael's mom and dad, Jennifer and Frank, are here with us today.
The Stabilles say in Mikey's death, they want people to know fentanyl is too accessible. It's taking lives and tearing families apart.
He was our youngest, he was our baby, he was our last. We tried so hard to have him, and then now he's gone for nothing. Absolutely nothing. And our whole family is torn up. Yeah. We just don't even know what to do.
Governor Little says he is developing an Idaho State Police team to interrupt drug trade operations. The Stabilles say they're hopeful for the future following the governor's promise to make it a priority. They say they stand behind his promise to help end the transfer of fentanyl in the U.S. In the studio, Janelle Finch, KREM 2 News.
I'm told the Washington State Department of Transportation is moving vacant RVs and trash from the camp. And from what we saw today, the inside of the camp looks a lot less cluttered than it did just a month ago. The I90 Homeless Encampment has been on washed out property for more than a year.
I adapt every year. I've been homeless for about 10 years now.
Just a month ago, there were more than 400 people living at the camp. Now, WashDOT says there are less than 200 people. Bobby Jo Duggan is one of them. She has lived there from the very beginning.
It's been kind of hectic. A lot of trash, a lot of left behind stuff, because we're not allowed to take all our belongings into our new apartments and stuff, but I'm glad to see my friends, grow.
Bobby says she's waiting for the right housing opportunity.
I like to get into housing, and that's why I talk to my housing guy every day that he's here to see what's going on with that, because there's a couple places that they have options. I don't want to do it.
WashDOT says that over the past 2 months, they've removed more than 48,000 pounds of debris and trash. Julie Garcia of Jules Helping Hands says 9 vacant RVs were removed from the property last month.
We wanted it to be cleared out right away, but our housing options are limited. So coming up with more housing solutions, and there are people in way higher pay grades than myself who are coming up with those housing solutions.
But even with the plan to clear out the camp,
Garcia says they're not at the finish line just yet.
We're still going to struggle with about 100 folks that truly have severe mental health or severe addiction issues.
According to Garcia, the Catalyst Project transitional housing on Sunset Boulevard is now full. They received 125 applications for 100 spots. Julie Garcia tells me that WSDOT hopes to move in the fence starting next week, and the plan is to move in the fence about 30 feet around the perimeter. In Spokane, Nathan Hyun, KREM 2 News.
Cameron Reilly Concrete is the company that finished the Thor Freya reconstruction project. In a letter to Mayor Nadine Woodward this past July, President Mike Reilly said, quote, "When we started the project in mid-March, we could not imagine the conditions in which we would be putting our employees and other subcontractors and their workers." Reilly says from day one they had issues with people from Camp Hope breaking into their locked storage yard, stealing items like batteries, solar panels, and damaging other construction equipment. A porta potty was also set on fire. Reilly says crews spent each morning accounting for the lost items and cleaning up the messes left behind. The company reportedly spent $2,800 a week to address vandalism. Tools and equipment are replaceable, but Reilly said his main concern was the safety of his crews. In his letter, he said that some had been threatened with knives. Reilly said he sympathizes with the homeless, but has to take steps to protect his business and employees. He warned the city last July, saying, quote, "If conditions do not change, I am not confident we can get this project done on time or under budget for the city of Spokane."
I think that both Cameron Reilly completed their job as they said that they would, and I think the city is doing the right thing by paying them this extra money for some impossible to foresee circumstances.
Tonight, in a unanimous vote, Spokane City Council members agreed to pay a $70,000 settlement to Cameron Reilly Concrete. KREM 2 reached out to Reilly for comment, but did not hear back. In Spokane, Kyle Simchuk, KREM 2 News.
I'm here at Yummy Crab Seafood on Division Street, where this restaurant just opened up yesterday. And the manager here tells me that it was all a big miscommunication, that they were paying their servers below minimum wage. When newly hired Yummy Crab servers went to training last Monday, they were under the impression that they would only get paid $4 an hour plus tip. According to the restaurant's manager, Zhongli Chi, that's what he communicated to his new hires because he wasn't aware of Washington law.
I do apologize at the first, in the beginnings, we do misunderstanding the law and stuff, but we try to fix immediately.
This is the social media post that caught our attention, and for that matter, a lot of people's attention. Chi says as soon as he found out how much to pay his servers, he made that change.
We got the information by Monday morning, so we replied to orders our servers.
Kiana McDuffie was one of the new hires. She says when she found out how much they were going to pay her, she told restaurant management it was illegal.
He showed me a weird screenshot. I don't know what for, but I was like, okay, that's cool, but that's illegal. You can't pay us $4 an hour. This is the state of Washington. It's the highest paying state in the states.
The manager is from Idaho, where servers only make $3.35 an hour plus tips. But here in Washington, after the new year, restaurant servers are required to make at least $15.74 an hour plus tip.
I have another serving job where I get minimum wage plus tips. So I was just basically trying to get the fair wage.
So the manager here tells me that he will be paying his servers the minimum wage rate for the training they did. And the servers I talked with this afternoon did confirm that their pay has now been corrected. In Spokane, Nathan Hyun, KREM 2 News.
Thursday's rainy and cold weather meant quiet runways, but inside the Stancraft Jet Center, the facility was full of people looking to learn more about the possibility of a commercial terminal at the Coeur d'Alene Airport. According to Airport Director Stephen Kiergaard, if the project happens, it would be located on Airport Drive in a space between two other hangars with parking located across the road in what's now an empty lot. Kiergaard says this isn't the first time Coeur d'Alene's had commercial service, but he says that stopped back in the early 90s.
The airport actually receives multiple phone calls throughout the year for the past couple decades about potentially restarting commercial airlines that service out of Coeur d'Alene. Our biggest drawback right now, though, is we don't have a commercial terminal.
According to airport officials, Avports would be the one to build the facility if it gets approval. However, the Kootenai County Board of Commissioners put off their decision about the proposed development and lease during a meeting late last month. Also at that meeting was Coeur d'Alene Airport Association board member Steve Anderson. One of the issues he has about the project is the lack of an airline.
They don't have an airline yet that they're planning to bring in, so we kind of call it the Field of Dreams terminal building, where you build a terminal and then you hope that another airline will come in.
As for Kiergaard, the potential for a commercial terminal is less about the growth in North Idaho and more about giving access.
Most of the community can't access this airport because it's generally aviation only. You have to own an aircraft, or you have to fly in from elsewhere on your private aircraft.
Now that we have moved past Thursday night's informational meeting, Kiergaard says he's not exactly sure what will happen next with the project, but that'll be a conversation with him, Avports, and the county commissioners. In Hayden, Cody Proctor, KREM 2 News.
Well, I spoke with Richard Huff the day after his arrest nearly 2 years ago. He insisted he acted in self-defense when he shot Erica Keenis, and that's the defense his attorneys clung to during the trial. Today, Huff is still sticking to that story.
A road rage shooting in North Spokane landed Richard Huff in a front row seat to the consequences of his actions. In May 2021, Huff was in the car with his family when they got cut off by the car the victim was in. Their interactions escalated from there. Both parties eventually stopped and got out of their cars. That's when Huff claims Erica Keenis confronted him with a knife and threatened to cut him. Then he shot her. A jury found Huff guilty of second-degree murder. During his sentence hearing, Huff told the judge he regrets what happened.
Loss of life is never good. It's a definite tragedy. But I'm still maintaining that this was self-defense and that I had no way out, and I did what I felt I absolutely needed to do.
Erica's stepsister told the judge how greatly they feel this loss.
Erica had a light inside of her. I love her very much. Myself and my family are deeply hurt and angry that this happened on a level that none of us can truly express to you here today or understand ourselves yet.
And the man who shares a son with Erica also confronted the shooter.
Many mistakes were made that day, but it was a choice to chase down Erica's car for a mile. It was a choice for you to exit your vehicle. It was a choice without hesitation and in anger, pull out your gun and kill another human being.
The defendant's family spoke in court this morning as well. Since Huff has no criminal history, they asked the judge for a low sentence.
I know that he was a very kind-hearted person, and I know that what he did was in self-defense.
When deciding the defendant's sentence, the judge did consider the fact that he has no criminal history and that the woman did get out of the car, confronted him, and was angry, which is why the judge set a sentence on the lower end of the standard range at 15 years.
Now, Huff will be given credit for time already served in jail, but his defense attorneys told me after the hearing they do plan to file an appeal on this trial. Amanda Reilly, KREM 2 News.
Just 5 more minutes, you may hear your child say to you as they scroll on social media. But in that 5 minutes and the hours spent scrolling on their phones, what kind of media are they interacting with? The Spokane Public Schools Director of Behavioral Health Services says what your child is seeing on their phones may be affecting their academic performance and self-confidence. Dave Crump says social media can change how we define our world.
When I was growing up, a friend was somebody I knew and hung out and we did things together. Well, a friend now, that's really one of the markers of, acceptance, how many friends or followers you have.
Crump is the Behavioral Health Services Director at Spokane Public School. He says social media contributes to increased anxiety.
We're seeing a rise in that anxiety, and that could go into performance anxiety on grades, on, to appearance, to acceptance.
Crump says there's over 100 counselors in the district, but setting students up for success can also happen at home. He says parents can help their students establish healthy boundaries with technology.
It may not be always popular, by saying, hey, let's put the phone up at 10 o'clock or so, whatever it might be. And then have time to sit down and talk about what are you seeing, what are you hearing, what are you interpreting as, what's appropriate, what's normal.
But even in its challenges, Crump says social media isn't all bad. He says following the pandemic, social media has been a channel to stay connected. Crump also notes that out of the pandemic came an openness in discussions around mental health. He says this could lead to more open conversations for future generations.
As these kids are growing up, they're having conversations in schools about anxiety, about stress. As this generation moves up, I think they have a basis that they could actually talk to the next generation about feelings and emotions.
It's hard to say if we'll ever live in a world without social media, but Crump says there are ways to be in control of our technology rather than let it be in control of us. Crump says being open about mental health challenges at home can help parents understand how they can best support their student. And if needed, he says every school in the district has at least one counselor students can turn to. In the studio, Janelle Finch, KREM News.
Well, last month, Coeur d'Alene students didn't start winter break until Christmas Eve, which frustrated quite a few families. Their feedback on this is why the Coeur d'Alene Public School District is now asking those families to weigh in on 2 different winter break dates for the next school year.
The holidays are always busy with quality family time and festive activities.
So our church has a lot of activities during the week. We do the decorating for our Christmas Eve services.
Beatrice Alonzo's family spent the days leading up to Christmas volunteering at church.
We would love to invite you to Christmas services at One Place Church.
But her Lake City High School student remained in class until December 23rd. A juggle Beatrice says wasn't easy.
I feel like her focus was not probably on school as much as it should have been leading up to that, because you've got the holiday you're thinking about, you're trying to get presents. Again, we're volunteering a lot in the evening, so her days were pretty full. She was a pretty tired kid.
Many other Coeur d'Alene families felt the same struggle and asked the district to change this. On Monday, the school district posted an online survey with 2 options: a winter break with more time off before Christmas or more time off after Christmas. Beatrice voted for a winter break that starts the week before Christmas.
I didn't see the benefit of school that week. Just out of that scenario this year, it didn't really show much benefit, or at least from my daughter, for a lot of my friends that normally travel.
The district's already received 3,400 responses to the survey, with preliminary results showing an even split. The survey closes on Monday, and the school board will discuss the final results at its February 6th meeting.
Now, the Coeur d'Alene School District admits it was unusual to have winter break start so late in December this year. Now, the school board already approved next school year's winter break dates, but the feedback from families could change this. Reporting in Coeur d'Alene tonight, Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
Here at the Maverick on Regal, they've already sold 177 Mega Millions Lotto tickets as of 5 o'clock tonight. Probably a few more as that drawing nears. But the woman that I spoke to earlier today, she hasn't played Mega Millions since December 20th, but she's had her phone ringing off the hook with a guy saying that she's won big. The calls started coming in to Don Olenacek early Tuesday morning.
He kept calling me back over and over and over again.
A man telling her he was with Mega Millions in Idaho and that he was waiting to deliver her prize.
He delivered $2 million in a cashier's check and $500,000 in a briefcase, cash.
He told Don he needed her driver's license and gave her 3 numbers she'd need to claim the money. It all sounded pretty odd, and she knew it was a scam when he got to his last demand.
As soon as he hit the $199 gift card, Mega Millions not going to call me.
No. No, we do not call you if we win. You have to tell us you win. You bring us a ticket and we will give you your money.
Christy Weeks often deals with victims of Lotto scams.
I talk to these people too often.
As the director of legal services with Washington's Lottery, she says what Dawn experienced is common, but you can protect yourself.
Someone does call you and they want your personal information, don't give it to them. If they want you to send money, it's absolutely illegitimate.
Another tip-off it's a scam. The person is persistent and tries to rush you into acting. Dawn's scammer called more than 20 times from 2 different phone numbers.
15 times on that number.
She's sharing her story so other people keep their hard-earned cash from becoming a lucky payday for a scammer.
Nobody's going to ask you to go down and get a gift card, especially if they're handing you $2.5 million.
Now, Elena Check did the right thing. She blocked that scammer's phone numbers. But if you're getting calls or even emails from a lottery scammer, you can report them to the state's lottery or even the Attorney General's office. In Spokane, Shannon Mowdy, KREM 2 News.
Thank you for joining us for this KREM 2 News Week in Review. Stay with KREM 2 News for the latest updates throughout the weekend.
Now, to find our latest newscast on KREM 2 Plus, just take a look at the bottom navigation menu. I'm Channing Curtis.
I'm Tim Pham. Thank you for joining us on KREM 2 Plus.